First of all, this needs a context, and the context is philosophy in pubs, and specifically our second group, Drink and Think. Now, yesterday's video, which is here, is to do with whether humans are an arrogant species. It's a video that I made before we did philosophy in pubs. If you want to know about that, there's a link down there about philosophy in pubs. And it's actually Drink and Think, but that's another issue. First of all, I contended my usual thing, which is that we are more important than giant pandas, but less important than a lot of bacteria. Now, by this I mean pandas are a species which happens to be alive at the time we are, and which is not well adapted to its environment, as far as I can tell, and therefore actually they should become extinct. And propping them up is working against the laws of thermodynamics, basically. We're less important than bacteria because, for example, bacteria keep the carbon cycle going. There's a video on the carbon cycle yesterday, by the way, you might want to look at that too. And also we're less important than, say, algae, single-celled algae in the sea, because they generate the oxygen, and so on. So that's the case. So if there was some sort of criteria for ordering us in a particular order, I think that we'd be above pandas, but we'd definitely be below a lot of bacteria and algae and so forth. That's in terms of the survival of the world. Now, somebody made the interesting observation that although we do that, we might all be hit by an asteroid, and if we look out for asteroids, then we can save the world. So maybe. Now when I say the world, I mean Earth, obviously. Right, well, there are other issues. For example, there's the feeling that you have a right to use resources, i.e. that the world has been put here for our benefit, and that is a feeling that a lot of people do have, or have had historically. Although nowadays, people do tend to question that a bit more than they used to. I think 100 years ago, people wouldn't have questioned that. 99 years ago, perhaps they would have done, because they were less optimistic about human nature because of the First World War. We also, what is arrogance? Well, we don't account for our behaviour, perhaps. We don't try to excuse ourselves, we just do things. And also there's the question of valuing an in-group more than an out-group, and in this case the in-group is the human race. Now, I also wanted to add to that, although we are the human race, and therefore why should we be different in terms of arrogance? We can't attribute arrogance to ourselves because we're an entire species. It might also be arrogant to say we are exempt from the kind of judgment that we make on other species. So we look at a species as perhaps herbivorous, carnivorous, predatory, having a particular niche. And when we look at ourselves, we say, well, we're exempt from that. It's nothing to do with us. We don't have a role. We don't have a function or an ecological niche. Well, I think maybe we do have an ecological niche, and we can't take ourselves out of that. So in that sense, maybe even saying that it's not relevant whether we're arrogant or not, and it's an inappropriate way of describing us, could be wrong. So, would the world be okay without us? Well, I think the world would eventually be okay without us, but at the moment we have to husband things, and there would be a huge imbalance. For example, there would probably be loads of rats. Cockroaches probably wouldn't survive, actually, contrary to popular belief, because cockroaches depend very much on central heating and that sort of thing in temperate regions, and they would probably just die out. So there would be a long period of imbalance, and after a couple of million years, which is a short period of time as far as the history of the whole Earth is concerned, things will come back into balance and the world will do okay without us. So the world doesn't need us in the long term, but we are needed to keep things going in their current state, perhaps. And finally, there was the issue of religion as arrogance or humility. There is one approach to religion that says we are the centre, and that's Judeo-Christian religion, obviously, although it does occur in other religions too, as I mentioned in yesterday's video. But there's another approach to religion that actually says you have to be humble. And that approach is the approach that I try to take myself. So I think that's perhaps a misunderstanding of religion. And it also went through my mind, although I didn't mention this at the time, that religion is actually a series of different criteria, and beliefs are only one part of that. And there's also behaviour and so forth. So that's the summary of what I got from yesterday's Drink and Think session, and I'll see you tomorrow.